Hello everyone and welcome to another Nature Diaries. Today's quite a special one. We're up in Kielder Forest in Northumberland and we're going to see the reservoir as well. We're staying at a lovely little campsite which is literally just in the forest park itself. So Kielder Forest is around 250 square miles, so it's a vast area, so we won't be covering all of that. And around 75% of that is covered with trees. So you can see it's a significant woodland. But it is an artificial woodland, it is a man-made one, it's a plantation, and we'll talk about that a bit later on. The reservoir is also man-made, and that was planned in the 60s, but it's the largest artificial reservoir in England. So there's lots to see here despite it being man-made, and again that's an important point to consider, and we'll talk a bit more about that as we go on. So we're on the edge of the forest, and you can see on the edge of the forest there's lots of different tree species behind me, so it's a great mixed forest. But actually most of this forest is spruce trees, so your conifer species, and they grow nice and tall and nice and straight, so they're ideal for producing timber. And again, this is an artificial forest, and I suppose getting timber in our backyard in the UK and producing goods in the UK is better than chopping down rainforest elsewhere. But for what I understand, the forest is quite sustainably managed, and there is a heck of a lot of wildlife there. Now these spruce trees seem to be favoured a bit more by red squirrels, so thankfully the greys haven't made it this north yet. But also they don't really thrive in these conifer woodlands where the reds do. And just to put that into perspective, this forest alone houses or is home to around 50% of England's red squirrels, so that's around 10,000. So there's around 140,000 red squirrels in the UK, but most of them are up in Scotland. But just to have around 10,000 red squirrels in this concentrated area is really phenomenal. And I guess if we did produce timber here, what would the land be used for? It'd probably not be forest, it'd probably be used for grazing sheep and such like. So although it is artificial, although the trees are chopped down, they are replaced, and it is quite a good safe haven for wildlife. Not only do we have the red squirrel here, but we have another great British mammal here, the water vole. So there's been some reintroduction projects, and there's lots of little streams like this one with ideal banks for these animals to actually seek shelter in and rear their young in. Now water voles, like the red squirrels, have been severely affected by habitat loss, but also invasive species. This time the American mink, which escaped from fur farms in the 1950s, and now they can be found all over England, unfortunately. But again, good reintroduction projects are really key, and they're happening with the water voles. So water voles, you can see field signs of them. If you see little piles of poo about the size of Tic Tacs, they can be very green, a luminous green, or quite browner. They're usually water voles, especially around the rivers. And also you can see field signs. You want to look for cut off bits of grass at around 10 centimetres, and they're usually nibbled on a 90-degree angle, so you can spot these species. Again, they are quite elusive, but it's great that there's been some work bringing these animals back. And you can probably tell we're in a working forest by the sound of the chainsaw in the background, but hopefully you can hear what I'm saying. Where we actually are is part of the International Dark Sky Project. So the night skies here are really good to see. Typically when me and Laura come it was overcast, but obviously it's better to see the night stars in the winter anyway. But it's a really cool location because there's very little light pollution, and there's very little light pollution because there's very little population and it's quite sparse. So when you look at the maps of light pollution, you can see around London and big urban areas there's obviously lots of light pollution, where there's not so much in this area, which makes it great for spotting stars. But it also makes it great for wildlife because there's not that many people here. And this is why this location, Kielder Forest, in 2016 was sort of pinpointed as the best place to release the Eurasian lynx in the UK. So they're already doing great work conserving the red squirrels, already reintroducing the water vole, but the lynx, a 35 kilo cat, could be back here. So it'd be interesting to know your viewpoints on this. So the lynx has not been wild in the UK for 1300 years. It's a species that was impacted by hunting and the habitat loss. But it'd be great to see it back, in my opinion. So what do you guys think? We've just reached a lovely viewpoint which sort of emphasises the change in landscape. So right up here just on the hilltop you can see in the far distance all the spruce trees, the trees we'll be using for timber. Then we've got all these secondary trees as we come down. But if I just walk you round the area behind me, this is where trees have been harvested and used. But this in itself makes great habitat, so this would be ideal for reptiles, but it would also be great for all the small mammals. And in terms of all the stuff that eats them, so lots of birds of prey are likely to forage and hunt over this area. So it just sort of shows that working landscapes can work if managed correctly. And maybe this is a future model, maybe the rewilding model, the regenerative farming model, whether it be crops, animal production, or indeed wood production, is the way forward. So you're sort of working in harmony with nature. And there's a profitable industry there, we're making it pay, but also wildlife has the opportunity to thrive. And we're sort of desperate for that solution in the UK because we are one of the most nature depleted countries in the world. So, you know, it's time we have out of the box thinking and make things work, and rewilding potentially offers many of the solutions to the problems we face. We're just going through a lovely little section now full of birch trees. There's a few other species in there, you can see some of the spruce trees as well. But birch trees are one of them understudy trees and one of the trees that always comes back first, along with trees such as holly when there's been a period of deforestation. So in this case it's obviously managed deforestation, but so obviously this is a managed deforestation, but it seems to replicate that natural cycle. So we just come across a lovely little nature reserve called Beefin, which is run by the Northumberland Wildlife Trust, and we've come across their bird hide. So we just sat seeing what we can see. We've seen a couple of Exmoor ponies on the far bank, which are probably involved in conservation grazing. But out there it looks ideal. There's probably otters here early morning, on the evening. And I don't know if they're in this area, but it looks an ideal habitat for grass snakes as well. There's lots of waterfowl there. There's even platforms they put out for ospreys, but they appear empty at the moment. And we've seen a kingfisher as well. But what I love about hides like this is there's always really cool education. So whether you're a beginner or new to the area, there's always something to learn. And we'll give you a little tour around the hide in a second. I'm just in the hide again, and there's lots of information behind me about some of the species you can actually see from this location. One of the animals, and it's been recorded on the recent sightings board, is a bird species called the crossbill. Now we have crossbills throughout the UK, but an interesting fact, up in Scotland, just a couple of 100 miles away, is the UK's only terrestrial vertebrate endemic species. And that, my friends, is the Scottish crossbill. So if that ever comes up on a pub quiz, you can thank me. I mentioned before the grey squirrels haven't quite made it up this far yet. That's not strictly true. What I meant to say is they've not made it to this park. So over recent years, they have started getting further and further north. And where we are now in Kielder Forest, greys are sort of on the border of it and started surrounding it. So there are some local squirrel watch groups where you can report sightings of the greys. You know, not because people necessarily enjoy controlling them, because it's not the greys' fault, but we do know that they're significantly linked to the decline of the reds. So it's really important that these species, invasive species, are monitored. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed our whistle-stop tour of Kielder Forest. Again, the forest is 250 square miles big, so we're not going to be able to show it you all, but we do encourage you to get up here or down here to see it. It's an ace forest, there's lots of potential in terms of wildlife. So come along, have a look and let us know what you think if you've been here before. Also, just a quick note, did you know that we also run lots of events, and we have lots of online events? So if you want to know more about some of the species we've talked about, and rewilding and animal behaviour and biology, just check out our Eventbrite page, and there's a link here for you. But until next time, Laura,